All right, and we are back here on the GSMC football podcast. And for the third part of the show, we're going to now talk about the Eagles-Giants game from yesterday. Eagles, again, I guess, I said Eagles get back on track, but they defeated the Giants 33-25, and it was an interesting game because the Giants haven't won in Philly in 10 years. Now, again, they didn't win, but, they made it interesting. They definitely made it interesting. Tommy DeVito got benched in this game. They brought in Tyrod Taylor, and that kind of changed it a little bit because the Giants actually outscored the Eagles 15-0 in the third quarter. And the Eagles, they, again, made silly mistakes. One of them was on, a kickoff return. Boston Scott ran into one of his own guys. They ended up fumbling the ball, and then the Giants capitalized, got a touchdown off of that. Saquon Barkley scoring a rushing touchdown. They actually went for two and got it at one point. I think it was on that possession. Or was it? No, that was an extra point. No, it was on the picks. Okay, the pick six is where the two-point conversion came into play. But yeah, so it pretty much looked like the Eagles were going to dominate this game. It was 20-3 at the half. But you know what? The Giants, they give them credit. They battled. They made it interesting. The Eagles, well, actually, it got set up by a big return, and then their drive was 2 plays, 13 yards. Hurts, the tush push, of course. He gets into the end zone. He breaks Cam Newton's single-season rushing touchdown record. Of course, people are not really happy about that because, of how he's doing it. When you got Cam Newton, who was running over people and doing flips in the air, Jalen Hurts is just getting pushed into the end zone. But he's got it now, so that made it 7-0. Then the Giants, they went down the field. They kicked a field goal. Mason Crosby was kicking field goals for the Giants now. 52-yard field goal, the former longtime Packer. Then the Eagles on their drive, they went 10 plays. Or no, they went 18 plays, 72 yards. I'm looking at the score, so it made it 10-3. 8 minutes, 11 seconds of time of possession. And Jake Elliott kicked a 28-yard field goal. So that made it 10-3. And that was the first quarter. Then the Eagles scored another touchdown to make it 17-3. Jalen Hurts connecting with Devontae Smith for his 36-yard touchdown. Then it was 20-3 at the half. Jake Elliott kicking a 21-yard field goal. It just looked like the Eagles were going to dominate this game. But then the Giants, they scored a touchdown. Saquon Barkley, they used him a lot. Scored a 7-yard touchdown. So that made it 20-10. Then the Eagles punted on their drive. Then the Giants punted. That was on the kickoff return. They got that was fumbled. And then Jalen Hurts threw a pick six to Adoree Jackson for 76 yards, and that made it 20-16. Giants went for two. Barkley got it. And then the Eagles answered with a touchdown. DeAndre Swift from 5 yards out made it 27-18. And then the Giants turned it over on downs. Eagles kicked another field goal. And then Tyrod Taylor connected with Darius Slayton for a 69-yard touchdown. So that made it 30-25. Then Jake Elliott kicked a field goal at the end of the game, 43 yards, which again could also be responsible for why I lost in my fantasy matchup. And then Tyrod Taylor, the Giants drove down the field. There was a penalty that wasn't called. It looked like there was defensive pass interference on Wan'Dale Robinson, but they didn't call it. Tyrod Taylor connected with Darren Waller for a 20-yard reception on 4th and 8. Then they spiked the ball, and they threw it to the end zone. It got picked off, and that was it. And the Eagles won the game. Jalen Hurts, he went 24 of 38, 301 yards passing, 1 touchdown, 1 pick, which is the pick six. Eagles ran the ball for 170 yards. DeAndre Swift had 92 yards rushing and a touchdown. Jalen Hurts had 34 yards rushing and a touchdown. Kenneth Gainwell had 41. A.J. Brown had 80 yards receiving. Devontae Smith had 79 yards receiving and a touchdown. Dallas Goedert had 71. Boston Scott fumbled in the game, and that was on the kickoff. which led to the Giants getting 8 points out of that. And Adoree Jackson, of course, had the pick. But yeah, I mean, the Giants made it competitive, but they just they weren't able to tie the game or go ahead, but they made it competitive. But yeah, I mean, it wasn't. I mean, the Eagles, they get back on track because they get the win, but they could have very easily, lost that game if they were playing a better team. But yeah, I mean, it looks like the Tommy Cutlets era could be over. Well, I shouldn't say that. I feel like he should still be a part of the team, but again, he's a backup quarterback. That's what he is. And it's funny because one of my Christmas gifts was a Tommy Cutlets T-shirt. So it's a blue T-shirt with Giants colors, and it's got the hand gesture on it. So and of course I get that, and he gets benched. So that looks like. I mean, we'll see what the Giants do. Like, will they start him next week? I don't know. I mean, at this point, it doesn't really matter. The games don't matter. But that's why. I mean, that's why I really couldn't get excited over it, because I'm just like, this is gonna end in heartbreak. It's gonna flame out. He's not the franchise quarterback. But you know what? He does deserve a role on this team. He does. But he's a backup. Again, he's a backup quarterback. But I ended up getting that game wrong. I mean, the Eagles, they again making mistakes, and you go up against a better team, and it's gonna really hurt you. Now, the Eagles are in a good spot because now you got the Cardinals next week, then you got the Giants again, and all you got to do is win out, and you got yourself a top 2 seed, and you got the division. Now, they're fortunate the Cowboys lost, so now they're a game up on them. The Cowboys have the Lions and the Commanders left, and the Eagles have the Cardinals and the Giants, which I think they should win both games. But, I mean, they, let the Giants come back in the game. So, it'll be interesting to see what happens down the stretch. But yeah, I mean, I really don't know what to make of this season. I mean, you have so many teams that just, listen, the Ravens beat the Niners last night, but again, they've had their bad losses. The Niners have had theirs, including last night. The Eagles and how they've been playing. I mean, you don't know what's going to happen in these playoffs. It's really going to be fascinating to watch what ends up happening, because you have no idea. But yeah, the Eagles still aren't playing great. They're not. There's still, again, the mistakes are, again, they could really cost them, and they have during the losing streak. So I mean, we'll just have to. I mean, we'll see how it goes. But, you got the Cardinals and the Giants get to the playoffs, and we'll see. But right now, the division looks like it's going to be theirs. Cowboys, again, they got a tough game with the Lions, who can put up points, but I feel like they're going to win that game. And then they got the Commanders. So I expect the Cowboys to win their next 2. Eagles, I expect to win their next 2. So it's going to be the Cowboys at the 5 and the Eagles at the 2. Unless they get upset, which, I really don't see them losing to the Giants in MetLife. But listen, the Giants played them tough, and that just goes. And they exploited that secondary. That secondary really has problems. I mean, Tyrod Taylor came in and. He hit that long pass to Slayton. There was that 4th and 1 with the Giants, 4th and 1 where the Giants turned it over on downs, and they had Waller open, and Taylor just underthrew it a little bit. And if you put more air underneath that, Waller's gone for a touchdown. So this game could have been even more interesting, but again, the Eagles, they made mistakes, and that's what allowed the Giants to get back in it. The pick six and, the kickoff return fumble. The Giants cashed in. Um, I mean, I know there was one play in the game where it was 3rd and 20, and they allowed Jalen Hurts to connect with AJ Brown. You don't let that happen. I mean, that changes the game. But again, the Giants. That was another Giants loss where they give you hope, like, oh, they're coming back, they're making this competitive in a place they don't play well in, and then they end up losing in the end. We've seen that many times with this team over the years, going after the Super Bowl. But yeah, they're just not a good team. And again, if that was a good team that the Eagles were facing yesterday, they would have lost that game. They would have, but they're lucky they were playing the Giants. So, yeah, I mean, listen, the Eagles, at least they won a game, but it wasn't pretty. I mean, the first half, it looked like, yeah, this is what the Eagles do to the Giants in Philly. But, of course, make it interesting. I mean, all these games had to be interesting because, they were all standalone games, So, yeah, I mean, we'll see what happens in these final 2 games. But, at least for the Eagles, they get the win. And for the Giants, I mean, we'll see what they do. I mean, is Tommy Cutlets going to get the start next week, or is it going to be Tyrod Taylor the rest of the way? I guess because Dable was just like looking for a spark or something. Because, I mean, if DeVito finished that game, I mean, who knows? But we'll see what happens. But yeah, that's pretty much it when talking about this topic. Then we're going to actually get into the final segment of the show when we get back, and that's going to be talking about the Dolphins prevailing versus the Cowboys, winning 22-20 on Sunday, the 4:25 game. Well, Eastern time. That was a big game there. So that is what we will talk about in the final segment of the show, is getting into that game, because that game was huge for both teams. Like I said, the Dolphins prevailed. So that is what we'll get into when we come back from our final break of the show. So stick around, and we'll be right back here on the GSMC Football Podcast.